Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Deborah Eckerling, creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I'm also the author of Your Goal Guide and the recently released 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, how to stay focused, grow your network, and get more done in less time. You can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people for a conversation. And you might be watching this as GoalChat Live or the replay or listening to us as GoalChat on the Marketing Podcast Network. But we are so glad you're here and choosing, in the case of today, sustainability goals. It is April, it is Earth Month, and I was fortunate enough to interview all three of today's guests on my Taste Buds with Deb podcast. And I'm like, we need to have a conversation. And I love the fact, so I'm on the Marketing Podcast Network, so this is considered business/lifestyle-y. And basically it means I get to chat about whatever I want with whomever I want. And Noah Bleich, who's the founder of the TeaBook, was a part of the one of my conversations in November. And I thought we need to do something on sustainability in April. So we have Noah Bleich here, Rick Nahmias, who's the founder of Food Forward, which is amazing. I will let him say more. And our chocolate expert, Ruth Kennison. So I'm thrilled because not only do we have sustainability people, we have people who love food. And I do feel like those kind of go hand in hand. So welcome, friends. Before we jump in, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves and say why this topic is so meaningful to you. So Noah, let's start with you.
So my name is Noah, and it's probably the most important thing. I remember growing up as a kid, taking recycling to the recycling center when you had to sort your glass by brown and green and white. My parents said it's always the most important thing. Got my degree in it, and now run a zero waste tea company.
And what is the TeaBook?
So the TeaBook is a book for storing your tea, and then we make fun collectible tea of famous people that have added positivity to the world.
Yes, because it's not a good conversation unless we start with a good pun. And I feel like we should do warning, Will Robinson. This will be a punny conversation. Enjoy. Ruth, welcome. Great to have you here.
Hi.
Who are you?
I'm trying to figure that out still. I am a chocolate educator. So what that means is I've always loved chocolate. I grew up eating chocolate and I knew nothing about it. And once I learned where it came from, I got a little obsessed with teaching consumers about where it came from. Our focus is so on, some of our focus is on where our food comes from, what fruit we're buying from what farmer, and billions and billions of people eat chocolate every year, yet they don't know where it comes from, and they don't know that there is a farmer at the equator growing it. And my goal was just to go out into the world and talk to children and adults and have them learn what this product that they love, all the effects of it that have reverberated around the world. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Excellent. And I know we're going to talk more about chocolate and how that really drives all of the things. But let's meet Rick first. So Rick, welcome.
Hi, I'm Rick Nahmias. I am the founder and CEO of Food Forward. And you can find out more about us at foodforward.org. We're a Los Angeles-based fresh produce recovery nonprofit. And we recover fruits and vegetables that would otherwise go to waste and redirect them to agencies who feed food insecure individuals, families, communities. We've been doing this for about 16 years. I started harvesting a friend's backyard fruit tree way back in 2009. And now we have probably 2,000 or 3,000 volunteers, about 60 employees, and we move enough produce every day to meet the nutritional needs of about 300,000 individuals. So it's a lot of fresh fruits and veggies, about 400 types over the course of the year. It comes in for free and it goes out for free. We call that fruitanthropy. You want your puns? I will give you your puns. That's trademark, though, Deborah. So don't even think about taking it.
Don't
And-
worry about me. Worry about Noah.
Yeah, and it is an honor to run the organization and be around people that appreciate a nutrition equity, which is really what we're after. It's not just food access, but it's about getting people the nutrition they need to live and sustain healthy, productive lives, which unfortunately over 2.4 million people in the LA area in and around Los Angeles County and those counties adjacent to us do not get to have. So Food Forward's a big provider of that. We've ended up, I think, you want to give us a trophy or a tiara or a hat?
Wait, I've got my gold stars.
Great. You want to give us a gold star? I think we are the largest provider of fresh fruits and vegetables to food insecure individuals in the entire Southwest. So we've grown a lot, and I think we learned a lot of lessons during COVID and tripled in size during that. And now we're just looking at this wild landscape in front of us and seeing how we could be of service to people. So that's what Food Forward is.
And I know this because I interviewed you for Taste Buds, but you basically came up with the idea because you were taking a walk and saw fruit on the ground, right?
I did. It was a multi-pronged origin story. The first piece of it, which was very true, is my dog Scout was getting older, and so our walks got slower. And I live in the Valley Glen, Van Nuys area of the San Fernando Valley, which is was decommissioned walnut and citrus orchards. And a lot of those legacy trees are and most of them are gone now in the last 15, 20 years, but they were in their last legs. They were still producing citrus. And a lot of that was falling to the ground, being carried off by squirrels or rats and ending up under the back tires of your lovely cars, instead of going into the hands of people that needed it just a mile or two away at various food pantries. And so the idea was to be a connector. We didn't need another agency that was feeding the hungry. We needed a feeder agency that was feeding the agencies that fed the people. So we are a B2B. People don't knock on our door, very often at least, for fresh produce. They knock on the agency doors of about 270 hunger relief partners that are in LA City, LA County, every district of LA County, and then 12 additional counties in Southern California, plus 6 states and tribal lands. So our produce gets far and wide. There's a lot of it. And we love giving it away. That's kind of what we do, is give it away.
Well, since I interviewed you, I hear more and more people knew that you existed before I did. And I know that it's this tremendous, tremendous service. And I feel like, Noah, will you share your origin story?
my birth origin or my environmental origin?
Your TeaBook
Okay.
origin story.
So I started because I always loved tea, and I wanted to make a way to organize tea. So I made this book because I had a meals for the Sabbath, and people would say, "Oh, what kind of teas do you have after the meal?" And I didn't know how to get my 40 boxes of tea, so I invented this book after I told my mom, and I had forgotten. And then she called, and a year before she passed away from cancer, she mailed me a prototype. And she said, always follow your dreams. So I think a lot of the things we do is about inspiration. And that's really, people think a lot of it should be about hope. Less hopeful, more inspired. And when I was at the Brandeis University, I was I don't remember, I was president or whatever of the Students for Environmental Action. And we had a quote. It said, as a famous Indian philosopher, he said, you only protect what you love, you only love what you understand, and you only understand what you are taught. And so that was kind of our mission.
Nice. And Ruth, and I very distinctly remember from interviewing you for Taste Buds that you love chocolate so much that was like the theme of your birthday party, right?
Yeah, my 16th birthday party.
It was a literal and figurative sweet 16.
Yeah, and I didn't ask anyone to bring me chocolate, but that was the only gift everyone brought, and it was Godiva, which is, now I know a lot more than I knew then. But so at 16, I received like 20 boxes of Godiva chocolate without requesting it.
But there was a leap from that to you becoming a chocolate educator.
It was. Well, I was doing pastry, and a dear friend of mine, Clemence Gossett, was opening up a cooking school. And she asked me to choose one thing to become an expert in. And I chose chocolate, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I learned how to be a confectioner. And that's when I went to Paris and met a woman who was to be my mentor, one of my mentors, Chloe Dutra-Roussel, who I went on my first, what we call origin trip, speaking of origin stories. And that's when I went to Mexico and Chiapas and Tabasco and met the cacao farmers and saw the cacao farms and saw how much they were struggling and not really understanding how it got from there to here. And now I just did a much deeper dive than I ever expected, because I felt like a bit of an evangelist, and it was important for all these kids who are eating all this, what they call chocolate, to understand where it came from. And there's so much cognitive dissonance. So that was kind of what happened for me. We all have our things, and I was like, okay, that's my thing. It's going to be chocolate. So.
And people who watch this show know that unless it's on purpose, my guests don't know each other. And you all, I've met at different times, but all through my Taste Buds with Deb show. But Ruth and Rick have a good friend in common. So, sometimes the worlds cross in ways that we don't quite expect.
Ruth, I feel also like our worlds have crossed before in other,
I think so too.
Clemence,
Definitely.
Clemence Gossett is a connector, and
Mhm.
she's a culinary connector at that. And we have a culinary advisory council of which she is a key member. But she's always, I went to cooking school. I don't call myself a chef. I call myself a cook. There's a very big difference. But there is almost like an unspoken core value, I think, in all chefs, which is just a sense of generosity. And she's like emblematic of that, whether it's connecting people, or I remember literally a call from her, like this was probably the second day of the fires in early January, was I've got literally like, I think 500 croissant proofing right now, and I have no place for them. And for those of your listeners who don't know what proofing is, it's the rising of the dough to a point before it's baked. So it's that lovely yeasty thing that becomes its own entity. And as Ruth will be witness for all four of us, Clemence makes, if not the best croissant, one of the best in the city. It's been written about all over. She's also just an amazing energy and teacher. And she called me and said, what can we do? And I mostly, our organization brokers in fresh produce, but she also knows occasionally, like if there is a plant-based milk, or if there is a fruit juice, or even breads, because they are truly plant-based, that we can help find a home for them. And we went right to work, because God knows that would be, we'll use a word, Deborah, that I'm sure your audience might know of, a shunda, to let any croissant that Clemence touched go to waste. I'm sorry, I didn't get in line and get some of those, but now that I have all the information from Ruth, I will be there soon. And I say that in jest, but also the food community is one thing I'm very proud to be part of. And I think it's not just because the oohs and ahs, and I hate the word foodie. I hate it with a passion.
Me too.
It's such a dumb dilettante claim that someone makes because they actually go out and probably spend too much at a restaurant and take pictures of their food and Insta them. But they're the core values of the food community, especially in Los Angeles, is such pure generosity that over and over I'm really humbled by it, and it also connects many of us. We don't necessarily distribute chocolate. I think that's one of the few things that you never not find a home for, right? Maybe in some cases if it's bloomed or but
Never.
yeah, but the connections to that, and then in that second phone call, lining up those croissants with Clemence, it had led to a few farmers that were in a tight
Yeah.
bind because the Santa Monica Farmers Market had been canceled, was canceled for a couple of weeks. And you have, again, these amazing farmers that need a home for their produce. I was at the Encino Farmers Market gleaning yesterday, and these people, the last thing they want to do is see what they've created with their own hands and Mother Earth to go to waste. So it's all a wonderful connected cycle. I call it a virtuous cycle, and we're lucky to be part of it. But my point is that when you're talking to food people, you're also talking to people that really do understand sustainability and the need to not waste and make sure that somebody gets to enjoy and be nourished by what's on the table.
Well, just to call back what you're saying, Clemence was in my car calling you.
Okay.
But I didn't know it was you because she was on the phone all day.
Yeah.
But I was the one driving. So
it
is a small world. We were
this is
driving
a person
all
who had
over the city.
just opened a brand new bakery that clearly was all in, I'm sure, financial debt from getting it going and opened and permitted and whatnot. Within a few weeks, she was shut down.
Yeah.
And her question wasn't what could she do for herself. It was, how can I make sure that this food is eaten?
There was no other option. There was no other option. So I was in the driver's seat.
We hooked her up. And I would have loved to seen the handoff because it happened, I think, under cloak of darkness because that's when bakers bake.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to be there for the handoff of those.
Yeah. It was exciting.
It's also, I think, great from a sustainability perspective is that, sustainability is all about everything is connected, right? What happens 10,000 miles from here still affects us, right? And it's the same like the conversations, our networks. The environment is basically just a network. And so the other thing that's interesting is there's the Union of Concerned Scientists, their top 3 things that affect the planet the most. It used to be transportation, now it's heating and cooling. The second is transportation, and the third is food. So we add in this category makes us in the top 3 of most important for sustainability.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the literal form of sustainability because you need food in order to function, right?
Sure. In nature, there's something called the carrying capacity, which is how much can a system support, and it's primarily based upon food resources. So everything else is kind of, shelter is like, for us, we kind of want like our big houses, but you could live in a cave. I mean, we could survive as long as we have food and water.
I feel like I need to ask the direct question, which is, what is sustainability? So what are your simplest definitions of it?
I was going to let Rick talk about that.
No. I mean, it's so funny. It's as I said to you a bit ago, Deborah, I think it's such an overused word, and I don't mean to be kind of the doom and gloom guy here, but I just think people use certain phrases. I mean, how that word.
Okay, so tell me, what words should we use? Because in before we go on that tangent, I am with you. There's so many words we need to take back, like foodie. I consider myself a foodie, but I just make it like short for food lover. I do not at all identify with those other people who consider themselves foodies. So if not sustainability, what word?
Well, I guess I'll throw a question back to you, which is in relation to what? Because sustainability is such a broad umbrella. And I guess, if you throw enough X at a problem, it becomes sustainable, right? You throw enough money at a nonprofit, in most cases, it will continue to run. But does that quite mean it's sustainable, right? If you throw enough, I'm just trying to think of another example, enough petroleum into a refinery, it's sustainable because it can keep producing gasoline, right? But is that sustainable? I may be taking it too literally, but I really feel like sustainability is more of a mindset than that leads to a set of actions than it is a single action. And for me, sustainability is about how one or how all of us lead our lives in relation to the resources available to us, and how we make the most of them and don't take more than we need. I mean, that's to me a big one, is not just not wasting, but knowing that there's a finite amount of a number of things in this world, and there's not enough opportunities to demonstrate really kind of that generosity of just taking what you need, and trusting that you can come back for more. And if there's not more, someone will find a way to get you more. It's, I don't know, in my old age, I feel a little more zen about it. It's like that. It is really apparent to me in this moment that the I gotta have it, it's mine, I'm entitled to it, and I want it now, is really our greatest Achilles heel, because it's led to a whole bunch of problems, environmental, economic, social, that immediate gratification drives us. And I think sustainability is probably the greatest enemy to immediate gratification.
The word that comes to mind is entitlement.
Yes.
So entitlement being the bane of sustainability's existence, right?
That's a good one. Yeah, I like putting them on different sides of the scale.
Absolutely. And I personally love nothing more than a vague topic, because then I let my guests kind of run with it. And there is the literal, we need sustenance. We need to maintain who we are, as well as, our environment, because if we're not taking, it's a whole self-care rabbit hole that we'll see if we circle back to it. But I'd love to know, Noah, what is your definition?
So I heard that I was doing research in Woods Hole at the Marine Biological Laboratories, and we all worked together on different segments of a project, and then we got the results, and there was one that was clearly wrong. And everyone in the report blamed the machine. The TA at the end of it said, "This is a $50,000 machine that's triple calibrated every day. It is more likely that one of your friends made a mistake, but we always blame the machine." So, even taking this idea, what if we got rid of all human beings, right? Would sustainability still be a thing? And yeah, it would be, right? And even in sustainability, like, there were dinosaurs, they're gone. Did the dinosaurs, build too many houses, drive too many cars? No, it's just nature has a way of going up and down. It's flexible, it's dynamic. And so if I broke it down, I would forget from the human perspective, is the idea of sustain. Sustain is a time frame. How long do you want to sustain something? A day, a week, a year, infinitely? Growing up Jewish, it was always, door to door from generation to generation, right? And I think that's really how I would view it, is 20 generations from now, will we be around, right? And how do we make sure that happens? The second part of the word is ability. Do we have the ability to actually do it? Can we make something that's bigger, better, or smaller and better, that allows it to continue for 20 generations? So I think if we set timeframes, and if we ask, can we do it, the word has way more profound, significant meaning.
I like it. Ruth, you ready to chime in?
Well, I guess what I would say is, if anyone's going to talk about sustainability, not us, I mean, like, if you see it on a website or something, I think it's really important as a consumer or as a human being that you ask, what do you say that means? What are you saying that means? Because I am very, very frustrated, certainly in my world, where there's very large multinationals who are calling themselves sustainable companies. And I go crazy. Like, I literally go nuts when I see that, or I'll see someone who owns a store, and we only are selling sustainable chocolate. I'm like, I think it's important for us to ask the question to the person who's using that term and see if it is, greenwashing at this point. So I don't know if I have a definition, because when you look at it, it's like, oh, well, is chocolate sustainable when you're in Los Angeles because you are, using a very large carbon footprint to get it here. So should you only be eating chocolate in the country it's grown? It's just, it is, I just find it I do find it problematic as well.
Because something that's sustainable one place isn't necessarily sustainable somewhere else.
Possibly, yeah.
I once belonged to,
What's that?
I once belonged to the Sustainable Shabbos group, right? And they kicked me out, despite the only one with the actual degree in sustainability, because I refused to agree that farmers markets were more sustainable than non-farmers markets. And the primary reason is transportation is a tiny percentage of our food production's ecological impact, right? Like when you're going, high volume water consuming products in a desert, that's not sustainable. It's just not.
Right.
No matter how much you could pump it from, it's still having an impact. You might not see the impact, or you might not bear the costs, but the transportation is not the primary
fair. Yeah. I guess what I was thinking in terms of is when we hear local and sustainable, there's a lot of that. And there's no local chocolate, there's no local tea, right? Or is there? I don't.
Well, it doesn't really grow that much here. Now with the tariffs, actually, some companies are starting to. You can grow them in the South, is really effective. And UC Davis has a tea center, and they're trying to grow it up north.
Right.
You need certain hilly climates that gets a lot of rain. And relatively high temperatures.
Right. But I respect that. It's not all about the transport.
Yeah.
So if we were to take back the word sustainability as it relates to the food that we eat, and is it food when it's a drink? I don't know. What we grow, sustainability. Okay, I'm with you now. With what comes from the ground, what do we call that? Looking at you, Rick. You don't like the word. Give me a better one.
I actually like sustainability.
Oh, you do?
I find so sustainability, as Ruth said, I think it leads one and many to the practices of greenwashing because it's so vague yet feels good. I return again and again to the concept and the practice of eating with intention, which to me is different because I can still eat an amazing filet mignon if I want to. So I don't have to call it vegan. I don't even have to call it organic. But as an intentional eater, I've spent some time understanding where that meat originated from, how that animal was raised, and how it got to my plate, and then also the portion I'm being served. And if I'm being served a portion that's more than I can comfortably consume, what am I doing as the consumer with the rest of that? So I know this almost takes us into that very humorous Portlandia episode that some of you may have seen around the pedigree of a chicken, which I think is wonderfully hilarious because it really is what happens when you go to the far extreme on this. But something as simple as a farmer's market, I believe, allows you to ask some of those questions. Where did it come from? How were the farm workers treated? Is this an 800-mile span or an 80-mile span for the food to get to my table? And then once it's there, what am I doing with it? I don't think it's up. Many people don't care to use the ends of carrots or celery to make stock. And that's not what we're after so much as almost like a modern day reappreciation of what miracles, and I say miracles with a big capital S at the end, it takes for us to be able to do what we do 3 times a day if we're lucky, which is eat food. What was it? Last night I made granola and it was oats, it was maple syrup, brown sugar, spices, so forth. For all of that to have reached a collection point that I was then able to go in and throw some money down and purchase and bring it home and make this concoction is nothing short of a miracle. And all these systems have to work to make it happen. And I'm not saying that people should be living in a place of doom and gloom and wringing their hands at everything they buy, but have simple gratitude for it. appreciation for it. Again, take of it what you need and give the rest away or leave the rest for another time. It's a really simple concept, but it seems for a lot of people it's really hard because we're moving so fast, and the idea of stopping and slowing down and having intention around food, clothing we buy, I mean, any number of activities that we take part in on a daily basis, is indeed, it's a responsibility we have. I argue that to the death with anyone. It's not my parents' responsibility. It's not my government's responsibility. It's my responsibility as an individual. And I think when we abdicate that, then we're really effed.
I will tell you, one of my favorite things to do is to make veggie stock. So
there you go.
my as soon as my freezer gets hot with carrots, my favorite vegetable, but I'll save, like, sometimes I'll make mushroom burger. I made mushroom burgers yesterday, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna save some of the stems for my next veggie stock because I know it's gonna make it better. But I think that's like one of the best gifts of vegetables is you get to make stock from them.
Yeah.
Okay, now talk. I got so super excited. I'm sure there's a pun that I said wrong.
Super excited.
I got super excited about
soup, like you eat. I was just saying, I would take the S actually at the end of miracles, and I would say it's more about supply and science, right? Because at the end of the day, our food, we can grow it because of science. In fact, there's a very interesting historical debate / understanding. There's a huge burst in population around 1912s, 1920s, because there was this German scientist that invented mustard gas, which, World War I basically killed everyone. But he was the first scientist to be able to turn nitrogen into fertilizer. Once that happened, the ability to grow food went just exponential. Because prior to that, we just didn't have enough nutrients for the plants. And so that probably is the most significant jump climactically when you can make fertilizer, right? And it takes a lot of energy. Ridiculous. In fact, I think it's like 25% of all energy in the US gets used for making fertilizer. That's how important it is. And that allows us to grow the food, but then how do we get it? So that supply chain, right? And as our company, we call it zero waste. We still make waste. Just talking on video uses electricity and waste. But it's the idea, right? How can I get as close to zero as possible? So when we do things, we ask, can we do it a little bit better, right? And as long as you do that on your daily basis for everything you do, you're going to find more sustainability. Ecological sustainability, life sustainability, friendship sustainability, they're all about, can you do it over a period of time?
I like that idea in life. How do you get as close to zero waste as possible? Because there's definitely multiple meanings.
Like I said, those labels. Like I was at the Fancy Food Show. It's the largest just specialty food show in America, and I got into this argument with this woman. She had this like organic collective, whatever. And I said, organics, there's 100 pesticides that are allowed to be used in organic farming. She's like, what? You can't use pesticides? I'm like, you can. It's like, no, you can't. I said, just look up the USDA guidelines. I didn't make it up. It's the guy. And so, and even then, even if you did, you still have some from the groundwater, from the air. But it's like 30%, 30 times less than if you got non-organic. But she just argued with me. I'm like, it's not an argument point. It's just science and what the government allows. And so we don't think about those things, right? Because we just see the symbol and we go, okay, it's good. And it is better. 100% you should buy organic if you can afford it. But it's that understanding of the difference of the science behind what things mean.
And Ruth, if you were going to take back sustainability and define it as what it actually is, regards to food, what is your take?
I think I actually like both of what you guys said, in that it's just doing everything with mindfulness and intention, like every choice you make. But I also as an educator, I also think it's important to have conversations with whoever you are. Like, I love Noah because he's like, I got in this fight with this person. I got in this fight with this person. And like, I'm doing that all the time. And my husband's like, okay, is this going to happen right now? I'm like, yeah. They asked if there's soy in the chocolate and the person said there's no soy in it. I'm like, there's soy in the chocolate. So like, I'm constantly like, why don't people know what's happening? So for me, it's about like having these conversations, but with, I mean, it's like cradle to grave. Like, let's talk to the kids. Like, let's talk to the children. Let's make sure kids understand. I was just in Brazil, which, I just had to get that out because who doesn't want to say that sentence?
For Carnival, I hope. Were you
I was there post Carnival,
Oh.
but we were there for, I went to a cacao farm. But what I was going to say is like the miracle. We were eating the most amazing fruits, right, you've ever seen in your life. And one of them was the cashew fruit. And it has that little cashew on top. I don't know, have you guys seen the cashew fruit? I'm sure you have. Rick, you have. But it's a huge fruit and one little cashew. And you're like, all of those cashews we eat have to be like hand dealt with. Each piece of fruit has one cashew. And I'm like, every child in the world should know that before they shove them in their mouth. I know I'm going on a tangent and I don't really have an answer for how to impact sustainability, but it is like about the miracle of like, I mean, I grew up like in the, the 60s and 70s with processed food, and my parents, Noah, were not telling me to have zero waste, like none of that. But it's just about like educating and talking to our children about where our food comes from and how much a miracle it is and how much someone's hand has done this to get to where you are today, whether it's like learning about butchering or whatever it is. I don't know if that answered anything, but obviously Noah and I are going to go out and have fights with people in the store. And we're like, no.
Well, I feel like we all need to have a field trip to do Food Forward with Rick, and then stop for croissants and tea afterwards.
Yes,
that's what I feel like it's bringing everything together. What I particularly liked about what you said, Ruth, is people eat so fast that they have no idea what it took for whatever to grow and be able for you to eat it. So maybe that's part of this. Another part of the sustainability conversation, using those air quotes, is, I mean, you do that sometimes when you're really hungry, but when you think about what it took for the things to grow and the food to be prepared, you would never eat fast.
No, and just like I do chocolate tastings all the time. I did one this morning and I said, bad news, we're not eating chocolate today. And they're like, what? I'm like, we're tasting chocolate. We're tasting it, and you're gonna take your time. So it's like the peeling of the grape.
I used to work for the City of Los Angeles Environmental Affairs Department, which is now called, I think, Sustainable LA. But I used to go around to kids doing gardens for kids. I go to elementary schools and I would teach them about gardening, nutrition, and the 5 R's. And
what are the 5 R's?
Reduce, reuse, recycle. Rot, which is how nature recycles. And rethink, which if you don't do, the others will make no sense. Oh. And so we go through this whole exercise, and one of the things we did, so we did it from like the poorest neighborhoods to like the richest neighborhoods, because it was LAUSD. And I was ever in the poorest neighborhood, and I said, we should really show them how to grow a little thing. And it says, we can't even afford seeds. And I said, all you got to do is take that tomato you liked, squeeze out a couple of seeds, boom, it's free. Yeah, and they didn't even know that. They didn't even think, hey, the stuff in my food can grow more food. That's how far removed we are from our food supply. And that's, I think, one of the problems with why we don't take sustainability so seriously is because we don't really know, right? If you don't know, you won't protect it. That was the quote we used to use. So once you know, how do you protect it? And even then, another funny quote with the organics. I was talking with someone. I said, like 120 years ago, they didn't use the word organics. You know why? Because everything was organic. Organics was the solution to the problem we created.
Right.
Right. And sometimes we forget the difference between a problem and a symptom. And there's a great, one of my favorite authors now is Yuval Noah Harari, wrote *Sapiens* and a bunch of other books. But he said, human beings, sapiens, have been solving problems forever. We're really good at solving problems. We're just bad at solving the right ones. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly sustainability, right? We have to know what is it, the problem, not the symptom, and how do we solve that problem? You know?
And how do we make fewer problems? I think that's
Yes,
another issue, because I mean, can we at least all agree on this panel? Global warming is a thing.
Yes. I think
I'm not being a scientist. I would go out on a limb and say when there were 284 tornadoes lined up this weekend across the country, I'm like, in what world is that not global warming?
Yeah.
I every 3 days it's freezing in LA. It can't decide if it's going to be spring or winter.
Yeah.
So you know what causes that? So what happens is in the environment, differences create barriers, right? So you know the jet stream? So when it's really cold up here and really hot down here, that's a barrier, right? The cold and the hot. But what happens when everything gets even is now that barrier doesn't do anything. So now the jet stream can go all the way down and it can go all the way up. And so you have these massive fluctuations. Why Texas is constantly having these massive storms, because the jet stream, which would have stayed up there if we had just kept a temperature difference, but because everything's warming up to a normal, like a equal, the barriers don't exist. And that's the science.
So what can we do? I mean, I feel like we need some.
Are we in the doom section now?
I didn't know we were going to be solving climate change here.
Okay, we can't solve all the problems, but I do believe that there are things that we can do to lower our carbon footprint. Am I using the right words?
Yeah, prevent food waste is a big one.
Yeah.
So it's up 3 or 4, literally, because what we spend the water, fertilizer, road miles, man and woman power growing and then not eating is 30 to 40% of what we create on this planet. So imagine 1 out of 3 plus does not make it into use. That just rots in a field, rots in a landfill, emitting methane. So, you know, where I come from, that's a very measurable thing you can do. You also can divert that waste, or what would be waste or food loss, as they call it, at large volume, and feed people with it. So it's a win-win, multiple wins across the road. But that's what we look at it as.
Yeah,
So for preventing food waste, that means clean your plate, or it's if you have extra share, or is it both?
It's both. It's both. It's when there's stuff on your tree that you're not going to use, instead of dropping it in the green bin, which ultimately does go and rot, get it to someone, or a place that gets it to someone in need. If your friends and neighbors can't use it too, I don't care where it goes, as long as it doesn't get thrown out. It definitely shouldn't go in the black bin, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's as I said, it's a reframing. When what still makes me crazy with the restaurant economy we experience in the States, I'll say particularly in Los Angeles, where so many wonderful restaurants have gone out of business in the last few years, is you still see these massive, crazy portions that are way out of whack with what we need. Often like 3 times. I will take home the uneaten portion of a meal, and it will make 2 additional meals that are completely fine. Yet our food system does not really encourage that. I mean, I know there are people who really geek out on this, and they actually have a separate set of Tupperware that they keep in a bag that they carry with them to restaurants, and that's great. But even just the idea of de-demonizing, how's that for a word at 5 o'clock on a Monday. De-demonizing the idea of taking uneaten food home from a meal. I mean, yeah, French fries don't quite cut it on a second time around, but there's plenty of stuff that does. And I think that the portion sizes of what we're being fed is not only making us sick, but it's making the planet sick too.
I think coming back to your word about like sustainability, the words matter, right? So California recently just passed a law that said, because if you look at almost every food product you buy, it's, it says best by, used by, something just has a date. None of those are expiration dates. There's only one thing that legally requires an expiration date in the United States. Although I don't know now with the new FDA chief, but it's formula. Baby formula requires an expiration date. Everything else is just make it up. And most of the time they make it up, which is basically so that you throw it out and buy a new one. The stuff is still good. It can go years sometimes past its date, as long as you keep it in refrigeration. And the example is like, say you buy milk and it says used by, 2 weeks from now. But what if that truck that brought it, the refrigeration broke? It could be spoiled on the same day it's shipped, right? So we don't know. It's made up. And California made a law that said, all right, you're going to standardize this. Best by means this, and you have to use it only to mean this. And so I think as you begin to clarify the words, then you clarify their effect and their meaning, and then have greater impact on the change.
I was wondering, because on cans, it really seems like a suggestion.
It's 100% a suggestion. It doesn't matter. You know how you know when your can is bad? Is it puffy? If your can is puffy, throw it out. If not, eat it. If you eat it, it just doesn't taste good, then throw it in whatever.
If you're eating it, it doesn't taste good, stop eating it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it tastes bad or makes you feel bad, then stop. Unless it's ayahuasca, and then just keep going. It's fine. It's part of the process. So so we have to remember that. My brother-in-law, the second it hits that date, he throws it out. And you go in my fridge, stuff is there a year past that date, and it tastes perfectly fine, right? And so it's getting out that mentality and helping to define the word. I think what California is doing, the same we did that with the recycling symbol. Now you can no longer use the little arrows unless it can actually be recycled where you're selling it. So California only does like 1, 3, and 5. No, 1, 2, and 5 meet that criteria for easily recyclable. 3, 4, and 6, you can't use the recycling symbol anymore. You can use another symbol, but not the recycling one. And so changing that understanding, having it have more meaning. Another personal one, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, in the industry is the word natural. There's no FDA regulated word for the word natural. But the word gluten-free, I can't put gluten-free on my packaging unless I have had it tested. There are 0 products that we make that have gluten-based products. So I can say wheat-free. I can't say gluten-free unless I have it tested. I can say made with ingredients that contain no gluten. And so it's like, the definition is very important for us to understand.
And I think, as I said at the top, chocolate is something that does not get wasted. But do you have anything just from your standpoint that people can be aware of so they create less waste?
Well, maybe it's not about waste, but what you were just saying about packaging and naming. Yes, organic is better. I tell my students, don't look for organic with chocolate. If you have a farm in Africa, in the Ivory Coast, those farmers cannot afford pesticides. So we're back in the day. But fair trade's a huge issue for chocolate because it is absolute BS for chocolate. A farmer might get 2 cents more for chocolate. So all these certifications are just causing very poor farmers to not be able to get into like a Whole Foods, not the farmers, but Whole Foods you have to be fair trade, but the best chocolates can't be in Whole Foods because they're not fair trade, they're direct trade. But there's no certification for direct trade. There's just all these terms and all these certifications. It's all about money. It's just about money. So it makes that.
So if I am buying chocolate, what does the label need to say?
It doesn't, there's nothing that it needs to say. You just have to be a very discerning consumer. I actually brought some things to show you. So you just need to read packaging and understand it. So this is Eskinosi. He has a picture of every farmer that he works with. You do have to be careful that people aren't doing marketing BS, but like, just like in wine, you get to know the makers. Askenazi is a real deal. Every bar that gets sold, the farmer gets a piece of that, period. So like you have to learn what they're saying and if it's real or not, but none of these can be sold in Whole Foods, but they are all paying their farmers well above commodity price. So you have to just educate yourself on the makers and then read the packaging and see through the BS. Like you have to look through the BS. But fair trade is not going to help you or the farmer.
Ruth, tell me, Ruth, when can we have a worldwide ban on white chocolate?
Well, okay, Rick.
Oh, wow.
No. You have to come to one of my talks because
GoalChat just got edgy.
if it's real, if it's high quality white chocolate, you're dealing with 35% cocoa butter pressed personally by the cocoa press. And yes, there's a lot of sugar and it's so funny. I just did a tasting and the dark chocolate lovers, some of them love white and dark and hate milk. But the white chocolate you're talking about, the confection that's made out of rancid cocoa butter and 5% commodity cocoa butter, I'm happy to get rid of. But Rick, I'm going to turn you on to some really good white chocolate.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
No.
Apparently not.
No.
I've never been able to find a place where it's even, I mean, again, it took me probably into college for my palate to go to dark chocolate and it never came back.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be a really good milk chocolate to seduce me, but white chocolate has never, ever, even as a kid, I was like, what is this crap? And now I see it now. I kind of like, I want to do that, like pull the CEO card and saying there's no white chocolate allowed in the Food Forward offices, period.
I'm going to bring some by.
What?
I'm going to bring some by the office.
Okay.
It's a new food. Like it's an actual like new experience. It didn't exist like 30 years ago. That's
wild.
Okay. We'll try it.
It's also funny, like the term non-GMO is another one. I personally like. First, there's never been any scientific evidence to say it's harmful. Second is all of our fruits and vegetables have been genetically modified through hybridization.
Right.
Like if you look at what the original wild version of it was and what we produce today, like carrots were not originally orange. They were grown and hybridized to be orange. Right? That is a genetic manipulation. It's not at the cellular level, but it's genetic manipulation. And so for me, it's just like, it's okay. Like, don't care. It's not going to affect the environment in any way.
So before we wrap, I want to do a really quick speed round with each of you gifting goals. So what is something someone can just easily incorporate to their lives to be more food appreciative? Rick,
I'd say
goal?
Share something you really love with somebody. Like take a food or food item or something you created and just give it to somebody. Don't worry about the cost of it. Don't worry about whether it's gonna spoil or not. Just give it away with the love that you created it with.
I love that. Nice. Okay, Ruth, what goal are you gifting?
I really liked Rick's because I give so much chocolate away, but I just keep thinking about doing something fun where you do, like, because I think community is so important. We all think community is important, but have a meal together where everyone does like something new that they've never tried before. We once did a meal that was like, we did research on what the neighborhood my neighborhood used to grow celery, Rick. We found out what was going on in our neighborhood in the last 100 years. And we made a meal based on that. So it was like rabbit, celery. And we went to the archives at the public library. It was crazy. So so we used to have these supper groups. So based on different themes. So I would get back into that and try to do something very, very simple. You don't have to go buy a rabbit. but do something as a community, share something, and even try a tasting of something you never have tried before, like a flight of something crazy, like different oranges, different oranges, like get 6 different oranges at the farmer's market and do a tasting of it. I don't know. This is an idea.
I think that sounds great. I love food goals. Okay, Noah.
Yeah, I would say my
Goal?
phone goal is enjoy it. Like I'm 50 years old, and I remember like we just ate food and it made us happy. Today we are so stressed out about our food that it's less enjoyable. And I'm so like, enjoy the food. Remember, a good valuation for food is, did you like it? Because no matter how much you pay, if you didn't like it, it's worthless. So enjoy your food. It's going to be okay.
Amazing. I love a conversation on sustainability ending in food goals. So thank you all. Where can people learn more about you and your organizations / companies? Noah?
So you can, as you see on there, the TeaBook.com. You can always hit us up for doing fun things. We take unsolicited puns. You could just email me, Noah at the TeaBook, or support at the TeaBook. So we have some great ones. Someone said we should do Keanu leaves. I thought that was perfect. A little darker humor was Titanic iced tea. I'm like, is that too soon? I think that's fine. So send us your puns, check out our website, and just try to do better.
Awesome. And Ruth, where can people learn more about you?
I am at chocolate-project.com. Instagram's at Choc Project. I also work at the Gourmandise Cooking School, where I have something called the Santa Monica Chocolate Society, and it's super fun. And we've been meeting almost for 10 years. Anyone can join, and we do chocolate tastings based on different things. This month is going to be elevated chocolate treats, so we're going to be doing really, really high-end chocolate based on like a banana split from our childhood. We're doing a sake and chocolate tasting. Yeah, which I've never done. So I'm going to be excited about that. We've done tea, Noah. I've done a tea and chocolate tasting.
We make 2 chocolate teas. We have a Joe Bite-Team, which is a vanilla chocolate chip tea, and a Salvador Dal Tea, which is a chocolate mint black tea.
All right, well, we should collab, as they say.
Absolutely.
This is me patting myself on the back for bringing it together.
Well, we're starting a new website. It's going to be called Only Foods. It's a new thing where people just share foods together. Look at what I'm eating. Look at.
Rick, where can people learn more about you and Food Forward?
We're at foodforward.org, and people can come there to volunteer. They can come there to donate. They can come there to donate produce. They can come there to learn about food waste prevention and the environment and kind of the whole ecosystem that I was talking about. Foodforward.org.
Wonderful. Before we wrap, any final food for thought?
This was fun. Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed spilling the tea with you guys.
Thank you again, Noah Bleich, Ruth Kennison, and Rick Nahmias for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Deborah Eckerling. I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you will get the recaps and all the links and the goals, very important goals. And if you need a little bit of extra help with your goals, you can grab a copy of your goal guide or my latest book, 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, at your favorite place to buy books. You've got goals, you've got food goals, you've got sustainability goals, so I think you are set. So be more sustainable, love your food, educate, communicate, go out there and go for it, because we know you can do it.